Hi friends, WizD here, welcome to a new Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we're talking about the coming fusions that will start on July 4th, which is Packmaster Sheikh. Is that Sheikh in Arabic probably? Maybe, yeah. Anyway, so Packmaster, everybody's calling him Packmaster. He's a very interesting champion and Plarium introduced something that's brand new with this, a different way of pairing with other champions, which we'll talk about in a minute now. There is a bit of like controversy within the community about him because some people hate the FOMO, especially that there is no strong hounds to pair with him now. I'll talk about the details in a sec, and others say that he's just a good champion. So let's dive into it. I think that you should go for this champion. I'll tell you the only exception, who shouldn't go for this champion, and then why you should go for him for everyone else. First, his aura and passive, because they are hidden behind me, increase ally speed in all battles by 19%, good usable aura everywhere. Then his passive, whenever attacked by a Hydra head, he's only useful in Hydra. He places the Hex debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. Okay, I'm ignoring all aspects while I'm talking about this that will require a hound, one of the dogs with him. Then what the passive is saying, ally attacks on targets under Hex placed by this champion deal 20% more damage. So he can be your Hex champion, but if you pair him with someone else who places the Hex, probably that will void this passive from its strength. So he'll give you 20% more damage over a long Hydra fight. That can be useful, but he's not reliable on his own. This is the little bit of like a tricky part here as a Hex champion. So he can be your Hex champion in one of your 3 teams for Hydra. And if you have one of the dogs with him, the dog will basically counter attack. Right now, in the current state of the game, the only dogs that make sense to be paired with him is Fellhound, probably with decreased speed on his A1, decreased speed AoE, but it's difficult to build Fellhound properly for Hydra because he's still rare and he'll need lots of stats just to do proper damage on Hydra and land his debuffs and so on. But you can also put on him like that blessing that will turn his decreased speed from the small version to the big version basically. So good passive and aura. Now let's check his A3. Again, the only dog that currently exists in the game that can pair with him is Fellhound. The other options don't provide much value there. So that's the all-time block buffs. He applies block buffs for 2 turns. If you give him the mastery, that can be extended to 3 turns, and it's on a 3-turn cooldown. So he can keep block buffs exactly like Ugo almost all the time on the Hydra hits. Then on his A2, on a 3-turn cooldown, he puts shield and most importantly, taunt on himself. And if you have Fellhound or any other dog with him, this is unremovable. So this can be your all-time, especially if paired with Painkeeper or Emic or whatever. This can be your taunt champ. Well, forget about Emic. He will provide taunt. Just pair him with anyone who decreases cooldown and he will keep a protected taunt on himself all the time, preventing anyone from being eaten during the time of the Hydra fight. And then his A1 has a chance of applying decreased defense, which is also good for Hydra fights. So his kit is good for Hydra, but it's only focused on Hydra. This champion can be mildly useful elsewhere, but he is designed specifically for Hydra. First, let's talk about the exclusion. Who should not go for this champion? If you're early to mid-game, early game going to mid-game, maybe 2 months into the game, you have resources but you cannot do every fusion yet, this is not the one to go for. If you're saving all of your resources waiting for a strong fusion to boost your progress into the game, this won't be the one. What about everyone else? Your mid to end game probably can do one of every 2 fusions, or every fusion if you're hitting Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare clan boss and you're gathering resources faster, and especially if you just skipped the Acolyte fusion like most of the players, then just go for this guy. And because if you have the resources and you skip the past fusion, this is a fragment fusion, so it's a little bit easier than traditional fusions. If you skip the last fusion, you can go for this one. Will they release something crazy after him? We don't know, but that's the game that Plarium is playing now. We're saving resources for too long and they are never telling us when they will hit us with something guaranteed or good or whatever. So what I mean, you probably have resources stacked now that you can do this fusion without impacting your ability to do the next one if it's a good one. So that's why I think most players should go for him. Kit-wise, it does make sense. Let me tell you why. He is the only champion in the game, other content creators talked about this, that has taunt for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. With just a single turn cooldown champ like Painkeeper, this can be endless taunt in Hydra, so basically nobody will ever get eaten. You can build solid teams, 100% guaranteed teams around this champ, especially if you have Philhound with him. This champion on his own, especially with like the mastery to increase the debuff duration, he can keep block buffs on Hydra heads all the time and keep taunt on himself almost all the time as well. There is a lot of potential there for building solid Hydra teams using this champion. So yeah, his kit is solid. He's not top tier, he's not S tier, but why you should go for him, especially with the very low cooldown on the taunt that he puts on himself. Let's go to Hell Hades and I'll explain why from there. And this is all the champions that have taunt buff. Look at this list. It's only 4 champions and one of them is a Void Lego, unless you were playing when Emic Fusion was there. So Emic and Newt were released probably, was it a year ago? Probably a year ago now, yeah. So if you have Emic is definitely better, okay? Though his taunt is on 4-turn cooldown, but Emic in his kit got, like, Emic's kit overall is better, yeah. Green Warden Rorik is also solid and Duden is also good. Ambassador Lethlin is not that good, so you have 3 other champions in the whole game that can do what he does regarding taunt, and he has lower cooldown on his skill. Also the block buff aspect. If you remember from my full guide that I've done with Hydra covering all the basics and stuff, every champion you're bringing to the Hydra fight need to cover at least 2 roles. He does that. He's covering 2 roles, which is the taunt, basically is preventing people from being eaten, and the block buffs for all the time. Actually, he's covering another role too if we consider his passive. So Packmaster with his A2, A3 and passive are covering 3 roles for Hydra actually. He can be your Hex champion for one of your teams, increasing the damage caused by anyone from ally attacks. If he puts the Hex out, then block buffs and taunt that can last for the whole fight. Especially if you pair him with one of the dogs, or he is a valid option for Hydra. Maybe not for higher difficulties, but you need to build 3 teams anyways. So I would say he would make sense for most players, except for the exceptions that I said at the beginning. Everyone should go for him, especially that, and this is not even a prediction. Plarium already said it in the messages that they sent to the content creators announcing this fusion, that he will be paired with any future dogs that they will release into the game. What Plarium loves to do during a fusion is that they will release a new dog that makes a lot of sense, that also fits with Hydra. My guess would be it would be either epic or legendary, and they will release it for a guaranteed event mid-fusion, let's say. They haven't gave us any guaranteed events for so long now, maybe even a Void Lego, guaranteed Void Lego or something, that will pair with him. If they release a strong dog that pairs with him for a guaranteed event, let's say mid-fusion, or announce it at the beginning of the fusion. If they do it decently and announce it early on so people can decide whether they want to go for him or not, giving us that guaranteed dog during the fusion, everyone will go for the guaranteed dog, especially people who've been saving the resources for so long will get this one, and they will have a very solid Hydra team between both of them. This is not one of my crazy predictions. Lots of people are expecting this to happen because of that last line of the message that Plarium said, that he will pair with any future dogs that will be released into the game. They usually have pairings of like male and female, like Sifi and Rotus, Kaja and the Clown and all of that stuff, but now they are doing it differently. They gain a lot of points for creativity here of doing it differently. That opens the gate for a lot of other creativity, like what other pairings into the game that we can pair with, because till now the pairings were either by faction or like that specific pairs of like one male and one female characters that they release. Now we have a dog master, a pack master pairing with the dogs. But to my earlier point, he's also strong and valid for most players, even ignoring the dog factor. I made sure while explaining his kit, while talking about his kit, and while explaining why you should go for this fusion, I ignored just the dog factor there, so it will make his kit a little bit stronger, especially if paired with a proper dog that's not released yet, because he's valid even without the dog factor. So my verdict, Packmaster is a good fusion for that most players should go for, especially that it's fragment, so it would be a little bit easier. I'll go for him. I recommend that you're going for him, except that if you're early game and waiting for a stronger fusion, only in this case don't go for this guy. I hope this one was helpful. Thank you for tuning in today. I'll see you next time. Bye.